Reaching Out, 1988, cast aluminum by Sergio Di Giusti, Italian, born in 1941. This relief welcomes visitors to Michigan Legacy Art Park as it depicts two hands reaching out and coming together. The artwork reflects the vision of the art park as a place that brings together people, nature, art, and history. Embark on a journey through Michigan Legacy Art Park, a nonprofit sculpture park nestled in a hardwood forest preserve. 2 miles of hiking trails invite you to explore captivating artwork inspired by the people, events, and natural wonders that make up the Michigan story. Immerse yourself in the enchanted blend of art and nature, where each step echoes the state's vibrant legacy through artists' eyes. Good morning. Today we are at the Michigan Legacy Art Park, which is actually on the property at Crystal Mountain Resort up in Bel Air, Michigan. But it is something that is in conjunction with the Legacy Art Park. Crystal Mountain doesn't own it, but they have it on their property. So we'll see several installations throughout the woods, and we will show you all the good stuff that we find. This is Man in His Element in 2006, painted steel and concrete. John Suave, American, born 1963. The sculpture is placed among the trees so that one sees both negative and positive spaces. The sculpture has a double meaning, exploring man's negative and positive impact on nature. People who settled in Michigan enjoy its natural resources, but also use them to develop industry, such as the paper mills along the western coast during the 19th century.
That sounds good and all, but I still believe it's a Tom Landry, the Dallas Cowboys, with his trademark fedora on. If you remember that image, I think they used him for this model.
King Stanley, 2008, stainless, painted in oxidized steel with brass and found objects. Done by David Petrakovitz. He's American, born in 1947. In his own words, artist Petrakovitz says, King Stanley was inspired by an idea of a futuristic robotic man who may face a world where rusted and found objects are precious enough to be used to build a king. His name comes from his royal chest medal of vintage fishing lore. The work explores fabricated humanity, artificial intelligence, and the automation of our world, while also cautioning us that someday ordinary things we take for granted might become more valuable than we can imagine. Michigan Blue, 2023, wood, markers, acrylic paint, and fishnet. It's a community collaborative artwork by Patricia Innes and Dewey Bloxma. Michigan Blue is a collaboration of K-12 students, community members, art centers around Michigan, and visitors to the art park. They worked independently to create images of things blue in Michigan, ranging from water, lakes, streams, clouds, flowers, cars, clothes, and other things, as well as emotional experiences. Michigan Blue encourages everyone to look at artwork in different ways, perhaps sparking a flame that leads to a voyage of discovery. This is Robins in 2011. Environmental art installation with earthen mounds, wood chips, twigs, grass, and painted stones by Patricia Innes. The American robin is one of the few species of birds to have benefited from human development. In Michigan, farms, orchards, parks, and suburban neighborhoods that emerged where forests once stood provided new habitat and breeding grounds for the birds. By the 1930s, the robin had become Michigan's most widespread songbird, and in 1931 was declared the state bird. Ontonagon, done in 2002. It's painted steel and magnetite by John Richardson. By the end of the 19th century, Michigan was a leading producer of copper and iron ore, a role that shaped its industrial future. Ontonagon resembles equipment used to mine, transport, and refine ore, and pays homage to Michigan's mining history. The boulder weighs 1,500 pounds and is a visual connection between the way iron ore looks when it is first extricated from the earth and the familiar forms made from iron that surround us, such as buildings, bridges, and cars. The sculpture's name refers to the 1.5-ton copper Ontonagon boulder found in 1843 on the South Fork of the Ontonagon River, which is now in the collection of the Smithsonian's Natural Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. Saw Path Series Number 5, 1998, painted wood by David Barr. In 1955, the towering white pine was designated Michigan's state tree in recognition of its important role in the logging industry that shaped Michigan's history. From 1870 to the early 1900s, the state led the nation in lumber production and is still covered by 19 million acres of forest today. This is Saw Path Series Number 4, Steel and Logs, again by David Barr. This 16-foot sculptured blade seems to part the curtain of time as well as clear a path in the forest. Through the opening, one might imagine lumbermen working first with a hand-driven whipsaw, then the steam-driven buzzsaw, and finally the bandsaw. Michigan Legacy Art Park is now free of the sounds from a turbulent lumber camp, yet here we can imagine a time that was at once heroic, traumatic, and dramatic. This is called Compliments Hands, Hearts, Cars, Carts in 2003, made of brick, concrete, and ceramic by Caroline Korth. The sculptor, who is also an art teacher, conceptualized, fabricated, and installed this work in partnership with students from 3 schools: Brethren School in Manistee County, Young Detroit Builders, and Edmondson Elementary School in Detroit. The students designed and created their own bricks and developed ideas for the construction of a larger unified visual statement that preserves the individual character of each brick.
It is a park, an art park, but it's not flat. We just climbed a pretty good sized hill, and you got some ups and downs through here too, which makes it kind of nice. See what we got here.
The Singing Tree, 2005 to 2009, oxidized steel by Fritz Horstmann. Nestled among trees, this composition merges contemporary art designs with ancient concepts and spiritual themes from several cultures. Its location atop a breezy ridge makes wind an important theme in its place. The shape is based on an Aeolian, Aeolian harp, the instrument played by the Greek god of the wind. The artist wanted the sound of the wind whistling through the branches to serve as a reminder of Manitus, the spirits that, according to local indigenous tradition, inhabit every part of our world. This installation is called Big Two-Hearted, and it commemorates the 100th anniversary of Ernest Hemingway's birth and his fascination with people and the natural environment.
Looks like they have a lot of his writings on the stones along the installation. He watched them holding themselves with their noses into the current. Many trout in deep, fast-moving water, slightly distorted as he watched far down.
This is Mysterious Traveler, built in 2005 in its oxidized steel. It was done by David Petrakovitz. In a wooded setting, this sculpture seems to be a mysterious traveler, foreign to the landscape around it, but part of industrial Michigan. The figure is created from industrial steel objects welded together with steel shapes fabricated by the artist. Its construction suggests a mechanical purpose or function, while its form reflects the beauty and grace of early industrial machines. The sculpture evokes contrast between 20th century industrialization of Michigan, with all its steel and kinetic mechanics, with the tranquility of the natural woodland that peeks through as well as frames it. Harbinger, 1998, made of granite by Robert Caskey. The intriguing title offers a clue to the mystery of this enigmatic stone hat. A harbinger signals the approach of another person or event. The sculptor created a fedora hat that those worn by businessmen and industrialists
And Tom Landry.
to represent the period of Michigan history when waves of settlers, farmers, and businessmen displaced the region's original settlers. While a hat covers the head, it can also conceal the wearer's identity. The keyhole in the center of the headband is another puzzle presented by the artist. Five Needles, 1998, wood, synthetic, canvas, and steel by Michael McGillis. Before the turn of the 20th century, seemingly endless stands of white pine stretched across Michigan. This conifer species could live more than 400 years and reach heights of 200 feet, with trunk diameters of 5 feet. These impressive trees were once prized for use as ship's masts and are still valued for lumber today. The sculpture refers to this lost era and to the only virgin white pine stands that remain on the Lower Peninsula in what is now Interlaken State Park and Hartwick Pine State Park. The title is derived from the 5 needle clusters that make up the white pine's foliage.
Here's a better view of the last exhibit. We're approaching a fort. The stockade.
Stockade Labyrinth. Wood, Iron Ore, and Mixed Media by David Barr. Oh, that is neat.
This is a labyrinth. And I've come to the end.
This is Shadowstone Circle. Wood, Stone, and Multimedia by David Barr and Michelle Schultz-Leisk. She was of Ojibwe. Shadowstone Circle was created by David Barr to complement Stockade Labyrinth. His intent was to balance the colonial nature of the fort with an acknowledgement of the counter-presence of Native and Indigenous tribes. He hoped that a Native American artist would approve it, or would improve it. In 2018, local artist and educator Michelle Schulte-Leisk, citizen of the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewas, worked with students from Sutton's Bay High School to arrange the boulders to better represent Anishinaabe culture. By representing the medicinal wheel through 4 stages of the sunrise and adding tribal flag logos and clan symbols for each of the 12 federally recognized tribes in Michigan, there is now an interpretation from authentic Anishinaabe voices. The medicine wheel carries ancient wisdom passed to the next generation through stories and practices that support teachings about life, good health, and our connection to all things existing on the earth, wind, sky, and water. Michigan, 2012, Mild Steel by Brian Farabee. When standing on the shore of Lake Michigan, that magnificent body of water appears infinite and powerful. Viewed from a higher vantage point, like a space capsule orbiting the Earth, the lake would seem small, set against the expanse of North America. The sculpture, Michigan, expresses this finite, fragile nature of the lake, emphasizing the need for care and protection. Lake Michigan remains threatened by pollution, invasive species, careless use of water, and global warming. Michigan is an abstraction of a bathymetric map of Lake Michigan. The deepest point in the lake is 924 feet, just off the coast of Frankfort and Manistee in Michigan. In the air around the artwork, can you point out to Traverse City, Michigan, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois? Barn Chair, 1995, of wood and steel by Gary Kulak. Overlooking the Betsy River Valley, the familiar form of a chair frames the beautiful landscape. This sculpture references the lumber and furniture manufacturing industries that continue to thrive in Michigan's vast supply of trees. This sculpture was put together using the timber frame construction technique that was utilized throughout the 19th century for barns and covered bridges. This is Gateway to Black Eden, made of Corten steel, by M. Saffel Gardner. Idlewild, Michigan was founded in 1912 as a summer vacation resort for African Americans during segregation and became known as Black Eden. Many African American performers got their start at Idlewild. There was a great migration of African American families to northern states during the early 20th century. Gateway to Eden is oriented north, so one can imagine going through the opening to enter a peaceful zone of freedom. The top part of the sculpture portrays the bottom edge of an umbrella, iconic to African royalty. The thunder axe of Hang the Yoruba deity for justice is found on the columns. The oval is the artist's icon for sound.
Idlewild was a pretty famous place, and Hollywood decided it needed a story about it, but they also decided that Michigan wasn't cool enough to put the town in, so they moved the town of Idlewild, placed it in New York in the story, and I guess they thought it made a better story, but they should have left it placed in Michigan where it belongs.
Oh, and other shapes represent the sails and the bows of the ships which transported human slaves from Africa. This is Superior, made of oxidized steel by Brian Farabee as well. Created like a topographical map, this sculpture depicts Lake Superior and is one of the series of 5 featuring each of the Great Lakes. The deepest and coldest of Michigan's Great Lakes and the world's largest single body of fresh water. Lake Superior contains 10% of the world's fresh surface water and more water than the other 4 Great Lakes combined. Over 300 rivers and streams empty into Lake Superior, and at its deepest point, about 40 miles north of Munising, it is 1,300 feet deep. With 350 miles of water separating the east coast of Lake Superior from its west coast, people on the lake's east side watch the sun set 35 minutes before it sets on its west coast.
They should have these on the Appalachian Trail. It might keep some of the graffiti down. They actually have a chalkboard with a rag to erase, and you can leave a message. Maybe that would keep all the engravings and carvings and everything off the shelter walls. I think Blue just made an attempt. Let's see, I have my hands in it. It says Drifter and Blue. And Blue's over by the sign, and it's got some writing of what it says this is, but I know what it is. This is from the cartoon series Land of the Lost. This is where Enoch had the crystals to help Will and Holly go back in time, or go forward in time, to their home. The crystals are right inside there. Okay, here's what Blue says it is.
It's by Walt Steele. Well, it's called Walt Steele by Michael D. Hall. And he said something about it holds crystals for someone by the name of Enoch. I don't know if that's a Greek god of war or something. I'm not really sure. Or they were fabricated in the 1980s. Each was configured from 3 identical flat panels cut and folded in such a way as to produce a 4-sided 3-dimensional structure. His method is akin to that of a seamstress making clothing, or a sheet metal fabricator shaping vents and ducts to form flat patterns. This sculpture evokes familiar industrial and agricultural containers: hoppers, scoops, silos, cribs, dumpsters, blast furnaces, kilns, and the like. And they hold crystals.
You gotta forgive Blue. She didn't watch Land of the Lost. She's a little younger than me. So she's a little confused on Enoch and the Slee Stack and
A Dream of Home, made out of Corten steel, by Robert Holdeman. Dream of Home honors the historic I house architectural style predominant throughout rural areas of the Midwest. Its popularity, especially in Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, gave it the name. It recalls our roots, the home place, and the safety of unchanging memories. The piece is also a memorial to Art Park founder David Barr, who felt strongly about the inclusion of architecture in Michigan's story, and to the artist's son John, who lived out his life in an I house, his dream of home. This is Fallen Comrade, made out of painted wood, PVC sheet, and steel, by David Greenwood. Fallen Comrade is a stylized interpretation of a P-51 Mustang, a fighter plane that played a dominant role in World War II. While Mustangs were flown by other Army Air Corps divisions, their red tails are a distinctive insignia of the Tuskegee Airmen, a segregated squadron comprised solely of African Americans. Although they had previously been prohibited from serving as pilots, their efforts proved heroic in combat and in breaking down barriers of racism. This sculpture prompts us to remember those who fought for personal and national freedom, even as they were denied their own. Of nearly 1,000 Tuskegee Airmen, 155 were from Michigan. This is Nurture Nature from 2006, made out of granite, by David Barr. The title references the age-old philosophical question of nature versus nurture, whether behavior is shaped by circumstances or innate characteristics. The artist has reversed this idea to focus on how mankind's behavior can shape nature. The egg is a universal symbol of life, and eggs from many species require nurturing to ensure continuation of life. Without caring for the egg, there is no bird. Without the bird, there is no egg. Consequently, man's indifference or lack of protection of nature can further its destruction.
Okay, I know this one. This is a privy in North Carolina on the Appalachian Trail. This is where you do your business. Wait, my blue says I'm wrong. Okay.
Walls are way too high.
Okay, she's gonna read what she thinks it is.
Inside a historical mystery, mounds made out of concrete by Rebecca Nagel. Thousands of years before Europeans arrived on the continent, the inhabitants of the Midwest constructed earthen mounds. The mound builders thrived in Michigan more than 2,000 years ago and left a tremendous mark upon the terrain. With an estimated 600 mounds still intact today and another 500 that have been destroyed over the past 2 centuries. This piece increases awareness about Michigan's ancient cultural heritage of the Hopewell tradition and raises questions about a period that is mostly lost to history. Enjoy life. There's plenty of time to be dead. Quoted from Hans Christian Andersen. And this stone is in loving memory of Ruth Apel. Every blade of grass has an angel that bends over it and whispers, "Grow, grow." This is quote from the Talmud and in loving memory of Mickey Apel.
I know what this one is for real. We used to set some similar to this in Granville when we first moved out here to try to catch animals.
It's the drifter trap.
It's a drifter trap. We had a lot of muskrat traps. People would set them in the creeks in Granville and out in the woods to catch other kind of animals. We'll see what their sign says.
It's called The Trap, made out of metal by Naomi DeHart. This larger-than-life hunter's trap seems set ready to strike. It is a reference to some of Michigan's earliest European settlers. In Michigan, as in the rest of North America, the fur trade encouraged the exploration and settlement of the region. This sculpture recognizes the prominent role that fur trading and trapping played in Michigan's history, while provoking contemplation about man's relationship to other species and how you catch a drifter. This is Satisfaction from Nature, made of treated wood, metal, and canvas by Bung Chan Cha, Korean born. Beckoning you to sit and absorb the splendor of Michigan's natural surroundings, this sculpture invites the indulgence of your creative spirit. In framing the forest, the artist suggests a framed piece of artwork. Consider how art and nature mirror one another. Both are precious, both are tangible, and both stimulate a variety of responses that reflect the experience of the viewer. Let this artwork encourage you to stop and have a seat and take in the beauty of the forest.
That's a blue. That's not the forest. And it's an out-of-breath drifter from climbing the hill.
Hemingway Haunts, made in 2004, walnut dye on tree trunks by Patricia Innes. The legendary American author Ernest Hemingway spent his childhood summers in Michigan, staying at his family cottage on Walloon Lake near Petoskey, where he learned to hunt and fish. The first two figures represent Nick Adams and are modeled after photographs of the young Ernest Hemingway. Another portrays Gregorio Fuentes, the captain of Hemingway's boat, who was the inspiration for the main character in The Old Man and the Sea. The remaining silhouettes represent the characters Maria and Robert Jordan in the novel For Whom the Bell Tolls. This is the bonnet, made in 1998 with Ferro Cement. It is by Lois Teicher. The bonnet, with its inner space and flowing outer ribbon, represents women's contribution and presence throughout time, particularly during pioneer life, when the very sustenance of life had to be created daily. As pioneer families began settling Michigan in the mid-1800s, women took on tremendous responsibilities to care and provide for their families and communities. Frog, made in 1995 out of galvanized steel with copper coating by William Allen. Northern Michigan's abundant lake and forests are home to 13 species of frogs and toads. More frequently heard than seen, frogs are an important part of wetland ecosystems. Sensitive to chemical pesticides and water pollution, their health serves as a warning sign to dangers in the environment. Ribbit. Logging camp, done in 1999, black walnut dye on tree trunks by Patricia Innes. Michigan's white pine forests prove a natural resource for lumber, paper, and furniture. In the late 19th century, lumberjacks, including the artist's great-grandfather, cut down millions of trees, forever changing the state's landscape. The silhouetted figures commemorate those men who worked in logging camps during Michigan's timber rush. The figures were painted using an environmentally friendly dye the artist created from black walnuts. Over here too.